Is anybody as tired as I am of the word discipline? You know, it's just thrown around there like it's some thing that we all need to attain in order to be good people, in order to accomplish what we want to accomplish. We have to develop this intangible thing inside of us called discipline. And I used to be a big fan of that word because I considered myself a disciplined person. I always thought of myself as a disciplined person, but the more and more I went along in my journey of life, I almost got scared of that word. Like it was fleeting. It was something that I constantly had to cultivate within me, and it was just something that it created a fear response in me that eventually I don't know if I conquered that fear. I think more what I did was realize that fear and that dread of doing the things that I needed to do in order to accomplish my goals, it's like I became friendly with that fear or that dread, and I realized it was never going to go away. And you know, a lot of people will talk about that. Well, that's discipline. You know, that's when you know you have to do something even if you don't feel like it. So, I mean, I'm not trying to say that discipline isn't a word that you can't use if it works for you, but I want to give a little bit of a different take on how I've started to look at my own things that I want to accomplish in my life. And maybe it's a technique, or maybe it's a mindset that you can use in your own life. There's a book. I'm forgetting the author's name right now, but it's called Atomic Habits, and it's a really good book. When just for understanding how people that have developed positive habits, mostly positive habits, because negative habits are kind of easy. It's almost like, you know, it's like a sinking thing, whereas, you know, positive habits, you have to sort of rise above your default position as a human being. I think our default is to be not lazy, but just be static. You know, lifting weights, moving, doing certain things for your work or your advancement of your career or profession or business is not our default position. And, you know, I think about farmers and laborers and people that had to use their body in order to survive and thrive. Their default position was eventually raised from being static to moving, and that relating that to their ability to thrive. My body needs to move in order to thrive, so that's my default position. And because we have so many different careers and ways to make money and make a living in this world that don't involve moving your body, we've kind of set this default position of being static. And that's, according to this author, that's because we've created the neural pathways in our brains that have allowed us to have that be our default position. I'll be right back, gotta get gas. And what he says in the book, what really resonated with me, and I think what I've been doing for the past going on 40 years now. I remember I started running and exercising probably when I was in junior high, 14, 15 years old. I remember I had this little loop that I used to run just around just my little circle and back, and I did that 3 or 4 times a week, and then I added a little bit, and then I started doing some weights, and I've had different periods of my life where I've either done different things or slacked off for 6 months or something like that. But for the most part, I'd say 90% of my life, I've definitely had a running routine that's been central to my life. So I guess you could say I developed some of those neural pathways early on in my life, and that has served me extremely well. And I would highly recommend, if you're a young person and you still have, your brain hasn't fully developed yet. I think they say at 25 your brain is supposedly fully developed. If you're younger than 25, you still have a chance to create those pathways that will last you a lifetime. And here's my thoughts. That if you are trying to build a routine in your life, say it's workout or exercise or diet or working on your business or playing your guitar, whatever that is, the ability to stay consistent on that over a long period of time is the most important thing. It's so important that starting really, really small is the key to that, to me. If you have a goal that you want to start working out, I would rather see you do 10 push-ups a day or 10 push-ups twice a week for 2 months than to say, well, I'm going to start working out. I'm going to do cardio and strength training 3 times a week or 4 times a week until I get stronger. I'd rather have, if you can consistently do 10 push-ups twice a week for 2 months, that's more powerful, way more powerful than doing 3 times a week for 2 weeks and then quitting or stopping. And if you could do 10 push-ups twice a week for a year, well, that's huge. If you start to do them, because you're going to eventually run into times where you're not going to feel like doing that, but you're going to do it anyway. It's not a big commitment, but you can accomplish that. Now, maybe after 2 months, you add something and you add something else. And if it's too much, then just go back to your consistency. Whatever it takes to build consistency over quantity, because that's building these new pathways that in Atomic Habits he talks about. And what atomic means is small, like atom level habits. It talks about how people, rather than saying, they get up at 8 in the morning and they want to start getting up at 5, rather than start getting up at 5, start to get up at 7:59. And the next week, get up at 7:58. And you just slowly shift it back, and you just build that habit of getting up a little bit earlier every week. And that builds those pathways that become solid in your brain. And then it just starts to become, I don't know if I'd say easier, but it just starts to become built into who you are. I think about the time that I finally committed to learning how to play guitar. I had a guitar. I played guitar since I was 12, but I never built a habit around playing guitar until I was about 40 years old. And it was after about 3 different people in my life had given me these beautiful guitars. It was the 3rd wonderful, beautiful guitar that I had been given, almost like a sign, like, you need to start playing guitar. And I just said, I kind of looked up to the universe, to God, and I said, okay, I get it now. You want me to play guitar. So I knew that I had never been successful at creating a habit around that, but I was determined to become more proficient on a guitar. So I said, well, I'll play 15 minutes a day, 3 times a week. And I'll do the easiest thing I could possibly manage to do, which was for me to learn some cover songs that I could easily play. Simple chords, open chords, cowboy chords. And I learned to play and sing about 10 different cover songs. And I built that practice. I built that habit. It took me about 6 months, and then I was just playing well enough and I was enjoying myself well enough where I started to just kind of almost subconsciously extend my practice time. All of a sudden I would look at the clock and it would be, 20 minutes later, 30 minutes later, like I realized that I was playing for longer because I was enjoying it and I was just in that routine. But it took me a good 6 months of being consistent with my 15 minutes a day, because it's, any of you who've tried to learn how to play guitar, it's not an easy instrument to learn how to play. And it's like it's discomfort in your fingers and pain in your fingers and just feeling very awkward and getting frustrated. So that's how I built my practice around guitar. I mean, luckily I had, with my exercise program, I had already kind of built those pathways. So from a young age, I've had those pathways. Now, there was a time not too long ago, 5 years ago, where I was in the dojo practicing Aikido, and I kind of transferred all of my physical activity to the dojo for a while because I wasn't willing to make a bunch more time because of the other time commitments that I had at the time. In order to keep running and strength training. So I just dedicated my physical practice to my martial art. And when the dojo closed not too long ago, so I haven't been formally practicing my martial art for a couple years now, and I've introduced exercise and cardio and strength training back into my routine. And when I started, probably when I started training my martial arts, I was doing hot yoga. That was my thing, and I was doing an hour or hour and a half 3 or 4 times a week, and that was, that's a pretty big commitment, and I was in great shape, and it was a good thing. But when I transferred back to doing cardio and strength training, I basically said to myself, okay, I'm going to do 1 set of push-ups, 1 set of sit-ups, and 1 set of squats. And then I'm going to run for 20 minutes, which was less than I normally have. And that I was able to get pretty much right back into that routine because it wasn't a big commitment for me. I was used to committing larger amounts of time, but I knew that if I immediately started doing my full strength and cardio routine, that I would have more dread than I wanted to have. So now I'm up to my regular routine, which is 30 minutes of cardio 3 times a week and 30 minutes of strength training 3 times a week. And that's my routine. I do some walking and stuff outside of that. But that may not seem like a lot, but if you do it over 3 years and you do it consistently, it definitely shows huge results. And if I really wanted to, if I thought I needed more, I could easily add another 10 minutes to each of those, or 20 minutes to my strength training, and it wouldn't faze me. But I have basically the strength, the physique, and the stamina that I really want in order to live my life. I'm not trying to be a bodybuilder. I'm not trying to be a model. I'm just trying to have optimization in my normal life and to burn a few calories along the way, and that helps me with my diet. So two things. So I want to touch on diet in a little bit, but first I want to just say that I've replaced the word discipline with, I guess you could call it a method or a practice, which is simply writing out the things that I want to accomplish on a piece of paper or in my phone or whatever. And so it all starts with what you want to accomplish. I mean, some people want to lose weight, some people want to build muscle, some people want to just feel better. And you can break it down to that. I want to build muscle. And you can be even more specific. I want to build muscle in my chest. I want to build muscle in my legs. Whatever it is that you want to do. I just want to be able to have better cardio. I want my lungs to be able to have a bigger capacity for oxygen. Maybe you're going hiking in the mountains. That's what you want to accomplish. That's your goal. So, and then underneath your desired goal, you put down what it's going to take for you to get there. And the first thing you do is, well, you can write out your full plan, your full eventual plan if you want to. But if you have a rough idea that if you want to expand your ability to metabolize oxygen or whatever the word is, well, cardio might be the best way to do that. And you say, I want to build a cardio routine. And literally choose the least amount that you, or the most that you can accomplish easily, as easy as possible. Literally, if that's 2 minutes a day on the treadmill walking twice a week, that's all you should put. If you know in your heart that you can stay consistent with that for 2 months, 3 months, but if you put 5 minutes, you wouldn't know if you could do that, then just put 2 minutes. And then stick with that for 2 months. And don't say to yourself, okay, well, if I get through this 2 months, I'm going to add 3 minutes. Don't even say that. Don't even imagine or envision yourself doing more. Just focus on the first step, which may be your only step that you ever make. And that's fine. Don't shame yourself. Watch your messaging that you're sending to your brain. This isn't enough. You're building a habit that you can stick with. It's way more, again, it's just so much more important to be able to build that small habit than it is to jump right into something that you may or may not be able to do over a long period of time. Maybe it's 10 sit-ups once a week. Maybe it's 5 sit-ups once a week. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the amount or the time commitment. Just the absolute most you can do that in your heart you know you can do consistently for 2 months, 3 months. I think in Atomic Habits, I think it's like scientifically there's a number of days. I think it's like 62 days. I could be wrong. If you do something over a period of 62 days consistently, it builds the proper pathways in your brain to build that habit. And to just take it to a different area, talk about diet. First of all, diet is, if you're trying to lose weight, diet is 90% of your problem. Working out, exercise, it will help, but very, very slightly. I mean, really very slightly. I mean, with my 1 hour workout, I'm lucky to burn 700 calories. Lucky. and 700 calories is just a drop in the bucket in terms of what you need to drop. If you're trying to drop 20 or 40 pounds or something like that, it's not meaningful. But here's my recommendation is, first of all, you want to lose weight. First thing you have to do is to track yourself just as you are for 2 months. Don't change anything except 2 things. 1, track your calories. So you got a piece of 4-ounce chicken, you figure out how many calories that is, you put it on. You got a bag of chips, it's 500 calories, whatever it is, you put that on. You just track everything that you're eating. Don't change anything. Keep eating your ice cream, keep eating everything that you're eating. Just track it. Figure out how many calories you're ingesting on a weekly basis. And then, at the same time, just get on the scale once a day. That's all you're doing. You're not judging yourself, you're not shaming yourself, you're just making some mathematical problems and once you do that for 2 months, you're gonna be able to say to yourself, okay, so I ate 3,500 calories a day and I gained 4 pounds. Okay, so now you know that you gain 2 pounds a month, and at 3,500 calories, if you want to maintain that weight, you got to cut X amount of calories out. And that's the first step, and it may be the only step, but if I can guarantee you that if you're brave enough to do that and to jump on the scale once a day and have that whatever reality it is staring you in the face, that habit will build enough knowledge in you and enough awareness in you that if you truly do want to take it to the next level, you'll be able to do that with some real data. And then the next step is to drop your calories to maintenance. So, and just go for the big things, If you can let's say you need to drop 1,000 calories per week in order to maintain. Well, if you're eating 1 tub of Ben & Jerry's on a Saturday night, if you cut that out, you'll be able to maintain your weight. Do that for 2 months. See if you can maintain your weight and still keep track of your calories, still weigh yourself every day. And then if you eventually want to lose weight, then you have to go into a deficit. And that could be literally, if you're maintaining, it could literally be taking anything out of your diet, and over time you will lose weight. And obviously I'm not a nutrition expert, and so you got to get balance of all your different, proteins, fats, and fiber and carbs and all that. You got to figure that out, but that'll come as you start to track your calories. You'll just start to look at that more. So you want to maintain a balance in your diet, but simply cutting calories will, over time, it might take you, if you drop 100 calories a week, might take you 10 years to lose the weight you want to lose. If you drop 1,000, it might take you 2-3 months. It just kind of depends on what you want to do. But that data and that habit build is what you're doing. You're really trying to do it. And this is a topic, I guess, for another whole discussion, but you have to change the messaging that you're sending to yourself. You have to learn to get on the scale and not judge yourself for what you're doing, for how much you've gained. You have to just know that you're just collecting data. If you don't lose as much as you thought you'd lose, watch what your mind says to yourself. Oh God, I failed, or oh God, I'm such a loser. Whatever those messaging is, that's another habit building thing, and to change that, and to either just notice it, and that's the first step, is just to notice the messaging. Notice what you're saying to yourself, because all of those messages are why you're overweight. It's not the practice. It's not doing the thing that needs to be done. It's the messaging that you're sending yourself, which is keeping you or pushing you towards your goal. Like right now, I'm headed home from the studio, and my plan is to work out, and I feel a little sense of dread about that, and I feel like, my ego, I guess you could call it, is saying to my higher self, you don't need to do this. You can't do this. You can't accomplish this. It's too hard. It's too painful. It's too this and it's too that. And I'm noticing that now, right, in my mind. And honestly, it never really goes away. It gets a little easier to combat, but it doesn't really ever go away. But I'm at the stage where I'm also trying to change that messaging and into different messages. So when I hear that, a lot of times now I'll say something like, I can do this. It's really it's not that hard. It's only an hour. I can do this. And I start to change that messaging so that my body knows that it can do this and it can accomplish this. The last thing I'll talk about is just my method of goal setting and pushing those goals. It's one day at a time. It's before I go to bed at night, I have a little note in my phone that says tomorrow, and I put in round numbers for times. 7 o'clock wake up, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock workout, 10 o'clock work, 1 o'clock eat, 3 o'clock work, 5 o'clock eat, whatever it is. It's very, very simple schedule for the next day. But I also have all of the goals, the long-term goals in my mind. But I'm not writing out 5-year plans. I'm not writing out 2-month plans. I just know what my next day is going to look like, because that's all you really have. You just have the next day. And then by the time you go to bed that night, if you fill out your little tomorrow sheet, well, then you got the next day planned. And you're accomplishing your goals for that next day. You're moving, you're doing the thing that needs to be done to accomplish that goal, one day at a time. It's just, that works for me, and you can adjust it here and there. But as you build that and you only think about the next day, I find it's, at least for me and my brain, it's much easier to eventually accomplish the goal. But the goal is very much along a distant second to just doing the things that I know need to be done the next day. I mean, like right now, I want to just keep progressing as a guitar player. I want to maintain my weight and my strength. I want to keep progressing as an archer. So I know that I practice those things 3 or 4 times a week for how much ever I think that I can just push the needle on that just a little bit. Just keep pushing the needle, but mostly just keep it, at least don't go backwards. So that's my thoughts. And this whole, I guess it's a meme now, of discipline and willpower and grit and all that is just, to me, it's just noise, and it's scary for some people. And just bring it back to basics, one day at a time. And that's my thoughts for the day. Rock on.